This podcast is powered by the Mitt TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than Mitt TV. They can get you access to equipment, a production engineer, and can even edit your podcast. That's all right here at Mitt TV of Romeo, Michigan, and you can contact them right now via email at mitt.tvromeo@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvromeo@gmail.com. Well, hello, I'm Kelly Stevens with the Northern Macomb Regional Chamber, and for today's podcast, I'm joined by Katrina Roy, one of the owners of Westview Farm here in Washington Township. This incredible farm has been growing fruit for well over 200 years with deep roots in tradition and branches reaching toward the future. From its bustling fall activities for families to its locally owned, loved winery, Westview is more than just a farm. It's a living story of resilience, innovation, and community. Katrina, tell me a little bit about the history of Westview.
Well, thanks for having me. And I'm the sixth generation with my sister Abby, so it's kind of unique that it's two girls running an operation or a farm operation we find across the country and across Michigan especially. Our great ancestor, our great-great-great-grandfather, Michael Bowerman, came from New York after he served in the War of 1812. You know, at that time, Michigan put out the vacancy sign and folks were coming to find that 40-acre parcel and start their new lives. So he came and started in Detroit. And down in Detroit, they had those narrow strips that were quite swampy. So we all joke about, you can't grow blank in swamps, and there's too many gosh darn bugs down there. So he proceeded north. And so the story in the family goes that he passed 5 different lakes and then settled where we are now today. And we're on the original homestead. So he settled where we are here in the Romeo, northern Washington Township, but I consider it our heart is Romeo area.
You've always told me that.
Way back. Yeah. That's another story.
Yep.
But he started, and again, he had come from an orchard and farm in Ontario County, New York. So that was his intention. So he had to clear land. Initially, he did hunting and then took all of the skins of the different animals over to Port Huron. That was the port he would trade and to market to. So then it eventually, to the second and the third generation, Byron was then the third generation running the farm. It was kind of a diversified farm with orchards and fields as well as all the animals. So you had to grow all the feed and everything for them too. And from there, then my grandfather and 4 other siblings were born. And they all kind of split from the farm except for one, which was a single brother named George. And then my grandfather, he had gone to Detroit and was working at the train station. And he had his family there. So my grandmother Lida, my mother Catherine, and her twin Russell were born there. And my uncle, her older brother Armand, was born there. And then one day his father called and Byron said, "Harvey, would you come back home?" So back around 1920s or so, they came back home. So my mom, my uncle, all went through the Romeo school system and graduated from high school. The little schoolhouse we have on the farm was also where 2 generations of the family had attended too. So now we use it as a spot to serve wine from summertime through the fall. And
how big was the farm when it was originally?
Originally, it started with 40 acres, and then you would add on 40-acre plots.
Okay. At its height with acreage, how much did you guys?
200.
200. Okay.
So in this area, and folks kind of look back to the time when in 1931 we started the Romeo Peach Festival, there were many orchards in the area, especially up what is now 32 Mile Road and to the north, or off of Van Dyke and forget that road that goes besides Van Dyke. Off of that north and northern part of 32 Mile Road, there were a lot of orchards. We were small.
Okay.
So 200 acres was small at that time. So that's when we also had started our retail.
Oh, you
It's
started the
during
re oh yeah, that's right, because it was always the farm stand, right? Right
Right,
there on Van Dyke.
right there on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather Harvey came back to the farm. It was a year in the 1930s where we had a 1930s we had a large crop of peaches. He was told by the Eastern market manager, Harvey, don't come down. Canada has a bunch of peaches. There's so many peaches, you're not going to sell them. Well, he already had picked them, had them on the truck ready to go. So pretty creative on his part. He took the big, they call them a stake truck, turned it around. So it was, the rear was facing Van Dyke. That was Earl Memorial Highway at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that stop, we had a stop right there for the DUR, Detroit Urban Railroad. The trolley stopped there every day, picked up our milk and took it to Detroit. So it was an ideal spot. So he turned around the truck, parked it so the peaches faced out, got a tin sign that we still have that said 75 cents, and started selling peaches right there on the corner. Eventually, he built the building that we're still using today for our market. And then he built cold storage and a grading room. He built a grader for us. He was very good with his hands and very creative, which I think all those generations of farms and farmers, they weren't just farming the land, they were growing crops, they were building their homes, they were building barns. Our barn dates back to 1850. You know, we didn't call somebody to come build it. You had to build it. So very creative in all the generations.
So you and your sister are born to your parents.
Mm-hmm.
I know by trade you're a nurse,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So growing up on the farm, were you out there working with Dad, you and
Yeah.
Abby?
Well, and the farm really came through my mom's family.
Okay.
So my mom's part of the Bowerman family. That was her maiden name. And yeah, it was, part of our growing up. Where we lived was on Van Dyke on the east side where we had cattle. So I grew up with Hereford beef cattle in our backyard. So those were my playmates, And across the road we had dairy cows in that barn, which is now our winery and our cider mill. And so we had chickens and all the different animals. So you just kind of naturally, we were never forced to do work or anything. We wanted to help. So when the big wagons full of hay came, we wanted to help unload them. I wasn't very good at it, but I could pick up a bale of hay and throw it onto the cart to get it up to the top of the barn, but I wasn't very good with, really moving it well. So we just naturally did. My mom took care of my grandfather into his older years, as well as my uncle. So she was already superwoman at a young age. And we just wanted to be helpful, and we just wanted to be with them.
She was pretty amazing for the times of her ability to grasp the business portion of
Yep.
running the farm. Talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit.
Yeah. She really was a gal. I look at these young professional women basketball players, and she could have been one of them had she been born in this century.
Mm-hmm.
Just her abilities athletically, and then as she matured in a young lady and had taken some business classes, it just was a natural ability to help to market and use the market and know how to sell and how to talk to people and really want to serve people. And then, of course, she was taking care of us. And then one of those funny things when schools get too big of capacity, they want kids to decide which school to go to. They split our home. I had to go to Washington Elementary while Abby got to stay at Croswell.
Really?
So we were split for 6 years. Yep. The
I didn't
principal
know.
wouldn't allow it.
That is odd.
Yeah, it was very
Wow.
odd. It was very odd, but really kind of an interesting, there could be a psychological study from it because I went to Washington. So I had to cross the road every day to get on the bus and go there. And that's where I had Mr. Hevel, who was wonderful and definitely deserved to have a school named after him.
Mm-hmm.
And Abby stayed at Croswell. So we were split up school-wise for 6 years.
I guess I didn't know they did that with families. That's odd.
I know, it just, yeah, you wouldn't think of that today. But she was definitely business minded. She just had a knack in terms of marketing and connecting with people and just respecting everybody. And those are values she taught to us, that no matter how we changed the farm, she was always agreeable. She didn't fight us on any kind of idea we had. You can do whatever you want. You just want to make sure you're still growing a quality product, you're giving them a quality product or experience, and you keep things clean and neat, and you respect your customers and appreciate them. So I think those are the values we communicate to our guests, or try to,
Mm-hmm.
the times are changing, the guests and people change. And she also emphasized too that things change. You're not going to be doing the same thing we were doing as kids. And, it's kind of a challenge as a business person, going, gosh, where do you invest those dollars that you've made? Do you do this? Do you do that? What are the people going to go for?
Well,
And
that
our,
was one of my questions.
mm-hmm,
Farming in today's age is a lot different than when you guys first started working the
mm-hmm,
farm. And I know you two are both highly educated
mm-hmm,
in growing, but it also is entertainment too, right? You had,
right.
I remember when you were coming up with the idea of the winery. That was like flipping
Oh,
how you normally think. So talk about
right.
how you dealt with that.
Yeah, well, it kind of was a process. As we were getting into the 1980s and then into the 1990s, my uncle passed away suddenly, who was running the farm and doing everything at that time. And my sister Abby was working on her master's in chemistry. He had a degree in chemistry as well, which he earned on his baseball scholarship to Hillsdale.
Oh,
And
wow.
he was always science minded, which is also why we've always been involved with MSU and doing everything and adapting all the new technology. So he passed away. Abby was running things. And then, oh gosh, lost my thought. Shoot. Um,
I was talking
yeah,
about how farming has changed for you girls
yeah.
after, I mean, so your uncle dies, and now basically you two are
Oh,
left there to run. And but your
yes.
mom is still alive.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she was definitely, she worked her 7 days a week. She was in the market doing things, and always behind us. And so Abby, did more in terms of the market and then doing the field and orchard work. And my uncle, before he passed, had already started the integrated pest management. We had our own little EnviroWeather station from MSU, one of the first ones. They nicknamed it Snoopy.
I do remember
And
that this was in the Romeo Observer.
1980s. Yep, in the
Romeo
19
Observer.
yep,
Yep.
1980s. So we were already using science, and see, his education was science. He came home, he brought then technology, adapted into high lows and controlled atmosphere storage, everything. He just was really eager to adapt those new technologies. So the farm grew in the 1980s, and then the 90s. We could see the change. See, when I was kids, who was it? Dad was the one who was earning the money. Mom stayed at home. That's why they had big families. You would, depend on them to come get the fruit, come do the canning, the freezing, all of that. Well, the family dynamic changed. Both parents were working.
Mm.
They were not, the families were smaller. They were not doing the canning because quality of products that are available in the grocery store became more available. And so you saw a shift where they weren't coming for the big quantities of peaches and apples and pears. And so we could see that what was happening, and different magazines were noting that it was changing into more agritourism or agritainment.
Hmm.
So folks were having folks on the farm. So we started dabbling in some of that, some of the schools that teachers we knew, can I bring my kids out so you do this and do that and modify a wagon and have a little area with some animals and start doing that. So by the 1990s, we could see the writing on the wall. We had to do more of entertainment on the farm, be it in an educational capacity or an entertainment and family oriented. So that's where we started from, with a little 1 acre corn maze. I think it was might have been 1992 or 93. I'm not sure, but I think we were one of the first to have a corn maze, but it was only 1 acre. And my brother-in-law, he's definitely one of those engineering types, because he just carved out, I gave him a picture of a bear and a beehive and a honeybee, and he just went out and just cut it. and then started having 4-H kids bring their animals. So it just grew and grew.
Evolved.
So it just
I
evolved.
feel like you were the mastermind in the entertainment side, and Abby was the trees and the
Right, right.
growing.
He's on the ground and I'm kind of up in the clouds yelling, something like
I
that.
wouldn't say that, but
something like that.
That the entertainment side of
Yes.
the business was your brainstorm.
Yeah. Well, and see, and again, it's like it doesn't work if everybody has the same ideas and the same way of doing things and the same skill set. She and now my brother-in-law Bill, without him, like we're kind of 3 cogs of a wheel, I guess. I was so fortunate and blessed to have gotten my education in nursing, and I got my master's in med-surg nursing as well as gerontology, and I was out with the people, you know what I mean? So you have a feeling for how people are.
And they're working with trees and
they're
fields.
working with trees and fields and all the guys that are giving you all this nice black and white dry information about things, and I'm going, ugh. So I brought that in, and then I'd give Bill ideas, like we could do this, like how are we going to do that? I don't know, Bill. You're the one that the screws and nuts. So I go to different conferences. Ohio State Extension used to have a lot of programs. Then now there's a national organization. We also are part of a corn maze group that brings people together and different
Ideas.
different ideas, different people, professionals. This past year, we went to Dollywood. Where else could you learn about service? And I am so impressed with their board, who were boots on the ground. So we're a business model that we're boots on the ground, and their board of directors were there on that first day, running around and doing what they need to oversee. So I was just amazed with them.
That's awesome, because you two have always been the face of the farm. You guys have been involved. People know who the owners are. And
Yes.
I think people feel good about that, being able to see you there.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think there's no question in terms of, now they're always talking about, in terms of customer service, of transparency. Well, we're there. So you kind of see different things. They definitely see everything because they drive in from all different directions. And we're sincere in terms of keeping to our core values and still growing the farm, that we're offering events and activities that folks will enjoy. Our corn mazes, like I said, I think we're the first ones. I've done several for Michigan State University. Coach Izzo has always just been so cooperative. I just call the office and they're going, sure. I'm like, how easy are they? I've done the Spartan, when Sparty and the university had its birthday, Detroit had its birthday. I did a NASA one. We've done a whole variety of
Got
them.
to see last year's. I took my grandson on the helicopter ride out of Romeo, and they were always going over the top of your corn maze.
Yes,
so I
that
did
was
get
cool.
to
Yes.
from that vantage view.
Yeah, that was with Game on Cancer, and the Lions team was part of that. So that was a cool one for us to do.
Now, I know you guys you talked about the weather sensors, and I know you're really good at social media marketing. Have you guys used drones yet for going over the top of the farm?
Well, some farmers are using drones to literally, because if you're on the ground, you can't always see how the things are growing. So it's a lot easier to do it that way. So we have done some of that. We definitely have, we know our
boundaries.
Yes. Yes. That we respect our neighbors and all that stuff and so forth. And now there's some drone folks that are up in the thumb area. What they're doing, and I think it's neat, is because we have our weather station that tells us, with all that weather data put together, it tells us for our particular location when we will have an infection. So you have to treat it with medicines.
Wow.
Organic farming treats it with medicines. We follow the integrated pest management model, and we too apply medicines, and they're medicines like you and I take. In our weather station, I describe it to the kids. I say, and they understand, if I do things at a kid level, everybody understands it. So I do it at the kid level. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of like what we do here on the farm. Is we want to know if our plants or trees are sick, so we have to go to the doctor's office. This is our doctor's office. This will tell us when they will be sick. And most of the time, and what the point I want to get to the children is, most of the time it says, okay, and how many hours is it going to be sick? Most of the time it's 0. So we've been using the same technology since 1980. So we've been able to reduce those kind of medicine inputs that people are real concerned about, and continue to do that. And even our new trees are more disease resistant, etc. So things have improved so much just in the last, count my fingers, 45 years, something like that. So it just is, science keeps helping us grow and improve. There's some drone models that now can help us say when the plants in that area is too wet for a tractor, but you know it's going to have an infection, you've got to treat it, or your crop is going to be rotten. As I tell people, yeah, we have to treat things. You cannot eat spoiled fruit. So they're now experimenting with that model, that they can use the drones on wet areas or any areas and get that crop covered in the medicine it needs.
Science is pretty amazing
As
you guys are going forward.
It really is. And we're participating again with other ongoing research projects with Michigan State University horticulture department as well as extension. So now people see and accept those dwarf apple trees. Well, we were part of the initial research of, they called it dwarf high density. So how close can you put those? So it's almost like a row of trees. And so we participated in that, gads, a few years ago. So now that's the standard. Even the wires they use now, they just use one wire way at the 6-foot level. It's just amazing when you participate with the university and extension and do these things.
Well, I think it's a value to you guys.
Value to us. So we're, you'll
be able to put that out into the community and guarantee that you're not serving terrible fruit.
Right.
Now, the farm has gotten a little bit smaller in the past couple of years. So talk about what the trees are we see from the road. What are you guys primarily growing now?
The trees that we're growing in the plants. So we have, in terms of crops, we have strawberries that we're just at the end of.
And I got a very nice basket of those.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed those.
I did.
I hope you were able to get some. That's the only thing is, you're too busy. Everybody's going to take from you.
I know.
And then we have Saskatoon, which is a new crop for us. Those bushes took long enough to go. It's also called a Juneberry. Our soil doesn't have the correct pH to grow blueberries. So we can grow Saskatoons, which look a lot like them and have a little bit milder sweet flavor, and lots of things you can do with them. And they're super antioxidant.
That's a new berry. I have not heard of that one.
Yeah. Yes. It's very
Is it like
popular.
a hybrid between two different plants, or?
I don't know its origins, but I know that in Saskatchewan, in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, I have a feeling that's where it kind of started, those Canadians. And I can joke because my dad was Canadian. So it's very popular there. Here in Michigan, like our friends down in South Lyon, the Irwins, he started a crop there. They take a long time to grow. The next crop we have is sweet cherries, sour cherries. So we have raspberries, a lot of raspberries, the red raspberries. And then we go right into sunflowers, which is not edible, but they're so enjoyable. And honeybees and butterflies going crazy over there.
So you're continually bringing in the public.
Yes, very much.
The way you're
so.
growing your crops
is
kind of like a stage for the entire summer.
Yes, it is. It is. I like to have more things for the adult version, but right now it's really focused on the families really want to come and do that U-Pick experience, and then we add on wagon rides, and then we include with it then the farm fun. So they're able to run around. It's included, and the kids need some run around. So we have our outdoor animals. We have our goat, I call it the goat playpen, because they can get right in with the goats. And these are the same goats we're doing goat yoga with. So we're just having fun with the animals and with people. They don't have that animal experience, and they just want to hug them and kiss them and all that stuff.
So when you decided to convert the barn into the winery, and it's beautiful, was that something that you dreamed of doing, or was it a necessity to make the farm a little more?
Yeah, to kind of diversify it more. It was a dream I had, but I had it for the barn on the other side of the road.
Oh, really?
Because that was your old-fashioned bank barn. Old-fashioned bank barn. So really, the downstairs was built into a hillside, so it had all this stone wall, so it had a
Okay.
really always very cool and comfortable for the animals in there. And I didn't have the dream for this side, but Abby went on a marketing tour here in Michigan and went up to the, let's see, the Fox Barn. They have a winery and large cherry orchards. And so she saw that and said, they're doing it small. We could do it small. So she came back and had the idea, and that what we've been using that space upstairs for just kind of private parties for folks we knew. And so then our ideas kind of came together. So then it just was a perfect fit, for us. So it was. And nowadays, I kind of believe I like smaller is better. Then it's cozy. It's
easier
manageable.
to I was just going to say easier to manage. And
Yes.
some of these huge venues, you just need a stockade of workers too.
Yes, yes.
Which we all know is harder and harder to find.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and I think it's even more, it's challenging for those people who are looking for a particular job too, to connect with us. And the labor force, the younger ones, it's a different thing that they're looking for. I think they're looking for experience, and they're just kind of wanting to kind of do, I don't know, like the rainbow of experiences. They want to, I'll try this, I'll try that, and I'll try this, and I'll try that. Maybe it was just because speaking for myself as a baby boomer, that, we were growing up in the era of, you've got to be stable, and you've got to, think of the future, and you have to,
well, that was one of my questions. The future of the farm. I know it's gotten smaller, but you guys seem to have a really nice corner there. I mean, it's not overwhelming. You and Abby and her husband can still run it.
Yeah.
But that next generation is not so interested in doing this.
Yes, they're helping us in different ways. And, it's kind of funny because, again, I was doing my nursing career.
Right.
I always thought the farm would be there. I always worked on my holidays and my weekends off and so forth. You always think it's going to be there. So, and then there comes a moment or whatever that you see where you fit in. We're definitely not pressuring them at all. I think as a person, you have to kind of see where you fit in.
But that kind of goes to your story. You left the farm to do your work, but you did eventually come back home to it.
Yeah.
And it kind of integrated with what you had been doing too.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And I kind of go back to my mom in terms of teaching us, we're here to serve people. So I did that in my nursing career.
Servant heart.
Yeah, very much. And so we're serving people. I still use my nursing, I've had to kind of help people come back a few times, and I'm
well, that's
so
a good
grateful
thing to have on the farm.
I know. Well, and I'm grateful, and I'm very, very grateful, because also I can tell when they do need to have have the ambulance come, and I'm so grateful that that ambulance is right next door. And my brother-in-law served, I think, 15 or so years as a volunteer. They even gave him
that's right up behind you guys there.
Yeah,
okay.
And they even gave him an award act. So he was very highly regarded with them. So we feel a real nice connection with them, really nice to work with, always helpful. We try to give them all the details we can when anything does happen on the farm. Again, we're always trying to anticipate those little oopsies of where kids might wander, or when an adult tries to act like a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And
hurt themselves.
Yeah. Your ankles are not a 6-year-old's ankles. So
I would say your biggest work season is the fall for you guys,
for sure,
with entertainment and harvest and what's going on. And then you guys run through Christmas. What do you do for those couple months you're off?
Oh, those couple months. Well,
you're planning.
We're planning. We're catching up. Again, the world of farming has been a lot more regulated, shall we say, and there's a lot more regulations that we have to submit a lot of reports and things of that nature, as well as for our upcoming year. And that,
so you're really not taking a break. You're planning.
Not too much. We're planning, but we're not having to do the everyday and talk to people. We do get a little lonesome about mid-February, going, where's everybody? But then we open back up. So and that also gives us the opportunity because there's different ag and horticultural meetings and conferences. So that gives us that time in January, February, March to catch some of those, some retail ones, some wine ones, some corn maze ones. It's just amazing how you can learn at other places from Dollywood, Disneyland, other attractions, museums, zoos, and get ideas of, okay, how do they do things there? Because we're not just farming, we have to
Your
bring in workers, entertaining.
entertainment.
You're bringing in people, you're having to hire, train people, do things a certain way. So you have to bring it, as I say, you have to bring it up of doing things the proper way that every business is. And we're all under the same regulations. Got to follow all the guidelines when we have teenagers, and we take a special responsibility when we have teenagers working that, mom and dad kind of put them in our care of sorts. So
Right.
we do
It's a
have to keep
responsibility.
we have to keep an extra eye on our guests because it's just a different world today.
There's one young man that's working for you I've known since he was born, Scotty Allen's son, Levi. I remember Scott was president of the board for the chamber. So
Yeah.
I feel really old.
Yeah, I know. I know. As these people come back with their children and then it's like, and then their grandchildren, you're like, I don't know you.
You're right.
You know, yeah.
So Northern Macomb County is quite known for agricultural.
Yes.
We are fortunate to have a lot of open land and farmers working the land. Do you guys have a group that you associate with and
It would
bounce things off of
Right.
each other?
Well, it would be probably the biggest one that really encompasses all of us would be the Macomb County Farm Bureau organization. We pay to be members. And funny, folks go, well, that's the insurance. Yeah, guess what? The farmers couldn't get insurance. So what did us farmers do? We created our own company.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
in 1947. So it was just, how things are. Farmers, if you say no or you can't do it, well, I'll figure out a way to do it somehow because I got to get this done. So Macomb County Farm Bureau is a really good organization. It brings all of us in. Another one is that we all kind of go to is the Great Lakes Expo.
Okay.
And so under that umbrella, they have an annual meeting where there's tons of equipment, all kinds of retail, all kinds of agritourism, organic, farmers markets, just the whole potato of
The
all
farming,
the farming,
agricultural.
all the
Yeah.
experiences are there in Grand Rapids every early December. So, and that really kind of comes under Michigan State University Extension.
So there
And
you are,
they have
full
their
circle back.
specialists.
Okay.
Absolutely. And again, those extension agents, we've even, pulled on the ears and the sleeves of our governors and representatives to make sure that MSU Extension gets that funding because they help us, but they're indirectly they're helping the consumer too, and they're really stretched. It's just unfortunate they don't see the value in what they're doing for us.
I think Mark Hackle has, with planning and economic, and I work closely with them, but I know they have a heart and a passion for the agricultural side in Macomb County.
Absolutely.
And we're fortunate to have him as the leader of that
Oh
too.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. He's always at the different meetings. When we celebrated our 200th birthday, he was there.
I was here too.
Yeah. He was there. And thanks to our Michigan Farm Bureau president at the time, Wayne Wood, who was close friends with the governor, he got the governor who was on his vacation to come down and
Nice.
speak. And we had a tour of the orchard. He went with us on our goofy golf carts, His Secret Service, though, made it very emphatic, though. You do not deviate. You stay in those seats. This is what you're going to do. And you're like, aye, aye. So it was very serious, but it was just a real compliment to not only us, but again, to farmers, how the governor in that relationship with Michigan Farm Bureau. And we do a lot in terms of talking to our legislators, having those relationships, letting them know what's going on for farmers, farm businesses, farm families, and how we want to work with them. So we're grateful. Even Michigan Department of Agriculture, we were the second in our county to get ourselves verified. Michigan, they call it Michigan. Let's see, the acronym is MEEP,
Okay.
but it goes Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program. And what it does is the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development come in, inspect all that we're doing. All of our practices are really inspected in that, from runoff from the soil, from where we get our water sources, where we store our materials, our medicines, and all the materials we use on the farm, fertilizers. They inspect that. We've been in it probably now 15 plus years. Wiegans were first, another good farm family, then we were second. And so they tell you how to maintain and keep things that you're respecting and taking care of the future of the environment, the land, and the water. So that's important to us. In terms of the future, we get re-inspected every 3 years. So they don't just say once and done. They are coming back and inspecting us again.
Well, that's impressive, and it's good to know that, we can count on what's coming out of that farm is not going to be harmful. So to close things down a little bit here, look to the future, 50 years down the road. What do you see for farming? With the technology and all, is it going to lose what you guys have that face the owner to the farm, or do you see it preserving and carrying on?
I think it will preserve and carry on. I think we're going to use more technology to make up for some of the hands-on. We're in horticulture, excuse me, and that has the highest amount of hands-on labor. So that's where you're going to see changes that way. They're bringing in fruits and vegetables that are more disease resistant. That will continue. But the more technology they can bring in, my uncle embraced it. And so we've kind of naturally done the same
thing. Yeah.
Yes. Technology that even when we're applying medicines with our sprayers, it has a eye that literally can see the size of the tree. So it just doesn't spray randomly. It sprays, and if there's no tree, it stops.
And I'm sure AI is going to become a big part of this.
Yes, very much. It's going to be very interesting to see
the transformation.
Yes. And again, we're still in a global economy, and even this year we're having to change some of our UPIC because we're a global economy. Bugs and diseases are coming in from other countries that we really don't have any effective way to combat them. Yeah. So we're changing even some of our UPIC for cherries. We're going to have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that if we have to do treatments, that it's done. It protects the fruit, and then it has a re-entry, and people are safe to come back in and go picking. So it's interesting. That's having an impact as well.
There's so many aspects to running this farm. You guys are just geniuses, I think.
Well, we wear a lot of hats and just kind of embrace it. Like, okay, we need to do this. But again, we do have our specialists and people that come in, and education and learning all the time. That's the name of the game. You got to change, but you've got to learn. So you've got to learn what the trends are and be aware of it, change with it.
Well, that's awesome. I want to thank you for coming in and sharing your story today. I love the history of the farm. I know you guys have been staples in the community for as long as I've been here. Yeah. So, and I told you a little tidbit about your mom when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
But just a few updates on what the Chamber's doing. We are hosting this year's Peach Festival Children's Parade on Monday, September 1st at 10 o'clock. And our theme this year is automobiles, trains, planes, any kind of mode of transportation. So if my children grew up going to this parade. That's what we're trying to rebuild it and getting more of the community involved.
Families will have fun.
And then the Chamber is hosting its 39th annual Golf Invitational on September 9th at Greystone. I can't believe it's our 39th, but always a fun sellout day. And then we do have a ribbon cutting coming up on July 17th for RCC IT. He moved his business out of his barn on up
Van Dyke,
Ubling, and he's out on Powell, and it's a beautiful location. He's going to be doing that at 4 o'clock. So again, Katrina, thank you for joining me today.
Sure.
I'm going to be visiting you on the farm.
I hope so. More stories to come.
There we go. This podcast is powered by the Mitt TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than Mitt TV. They can get you access to equipment, a production engineer, and can even edit your podcast. That's all right here at Mitt TV of Romeo, Michigan, and you can contact them right now via email at mitt.tvromeo@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvromeo@gmail.com.